And
All
yes.
right. Sounds wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Desi and Devanshi, who are supporting this Clean Air Partnership workshop webinar. Um, yeah, I'm hoping today that you folks will end up learning a lot about heat pumps, different types of heat pumps, and yeah, let's get right into it. Thank you for that biopic and that introduction, by the way. For those of you who saw that introduction picture, that was me standing right next to my cold climate air source heat pump. So completely off of gas. My heating is and yeah, that was a picture of me kind of same day I got it installed. So I was in kind of my working gear, my home working gear. Yeah, so today we're going to do a little bit of introductions. Hopefully you'll find out a little bit about me, our team, and what we do. We'll go over some goals for today. We'll talk about what is a heat pump, give you a little bit of background, as well as some context as to why we're here and why heat pumps are really important. We'll also take a really close look at some data and experience and case studies from actual retrofits around the GTHA. This is a part of our Smarter Home Heating campaign. You'll see some call outs to that throughout the presentation today. A little bit of a disclaimer that you can see in the bottom there. So we are researchers, we are third party, we're not for profit. We're not really trying to sell you anything here. If anything, we're selling you information and knowledge. We're not mechanical designers, we're not HVAC contractors, but we've had enough experience that we hope we can provide you with the right knowledge in order for you to make the best decisions possible. So our group STEP, Sustainable Technologies Evaluation Program, we've been around for quite a while, 20 plus years. The picture shown here is our archetype sustainable house, which is out of the Courtright Center for Conservation in Vaughan. For those of you not aware, it's pretty close to Canada's Wonderland. I guess that's a good landmark to represent how close that is. We're a highly collaborative organization. We partake in lots of research, pilots, measurement and verification of different sustainable technologies, renewable energies, and clean tech. And our basic mission is to be able to let communities, homeowners, practitioners, municipalities and government know what the best options are and know from our experiences. So the goals for today, we're hoping to demonstrate that heat pumps work in our climate, and generally they perform near or at expectations in terms of the level of energy cost and greenhouse gas savings. Also that there are plenty of heat pump options out there, and there is one for your home. In addition, there are both budget options as well as high performance options, which may be more expensive. They do have the capability of paying for themselves over time, and we'll look into that throughout this presentation. And generally, homeowners are very satisfied with their heat pumps, at least from our experience. So what is a heat pump? I'm hoping I can give you folks a bit of a general introduction and some background. And I'm going to start with a little bit of context as to why heat pumps are important. So the majority of GTHA, this is widespread. This could go to Ontario, all of Ontario almost. I know there's some participants from Ottawa and from others within Ontario, not just GTHA, but most of these emissions come from buildings. The City of Toronto in particular is setting targets for net zero by 2040 to address the current climate emergency. So this requires urgent, deep energy upgrades for pretty much every single building and home. Every single building and home is going to need to get off of gas and onto some sort of electrification or carbon reduction. Drilling in a little bit further in terms of where the emissions come from within our homes, we can see there's an example of an energy use breakdown there. I'll start with saying that electricity in our province is currently very low in carbon. We have a large mix of hydro, nuclear, wind, believe it or not. Wind energy is around 11 to 12% of our electricity sources within our province. Furthermore, so within our homes, space and water heating accounts for about 80% of those carbon emissions, right? So a large majority of heating comes from carbon-intensive natural gas, right? This is like the typical use case. Most homes have natural gas. So the big issue is that we need to reduce that gas consumption used for space heating and for water heating. It also needs to be cost-effective for homeowners. And the solution is heat pumps. They offer an alternative to conventional systems, and they can be comfortable, cost-effective, and we'll find out a little bit more about that as we move forward here. So moving forward in terms of reducing carbon in homes, heat pumps are not the only approach. Here I'm going to highlight three of them. So there's the building envelope, the mechanical systems, and then there's behavioral or control. So when we're talking about building envelope, these in some cases are called the low-hanging fruit. So air sealing can be a really big one. I've seen numbers from 5 to 15%. And this can be as simple as, taking a caulking gun with $5 general purpose acrylic caulking and caulking around your window seals, around your door frame, so on and so forth. Windows can be a bit more expensive, and then insulation, depending on the type of insulation, that could be a bit more expensive as well. Sorry. And then there's the mechanical systems. So this is air source heat pumps, geothermal, heat pump water heating, solar water heating, which we may not get into today. And then the third option, which is best technically, is doing kind of a whole solution. So one of the standards in which we looked at is called EnerFit. So this is an all-encompassing solution where you would do some really heavy building envelope upgrades and mechanical upgrades. It's a really good idea, but cost can be a barrier with this solution. So what is an air source heat pump? I'm going to try not to get too technical in this presentation. All you need to know is that a heat pump is basically the same as an air conditioner. It can look even exactly the same as an air conditioner, although it has some advancements and it has some minor technical differences, but it can look exactly the same as an air conditioner. So it typically involves a split refrigerant circuit, meaning you would have one outdoor piece and one indoor piece. Ideally, it's just an air conditioner that can go in reverse. Instead of in a typical case where an air conditioner takes hot air from the inside of your home, it spits it to the outside. If some of you have gone to your air conditioner in the summertime when it's running, you can feel the hot air coming out of it. This can do the reverse. So it takes warm or hot air from the outside, even in really cold temperatures, and it's able to spit it into the inside of the space, inside your home. It's not magic, it's just refrigeration. So another example we could describe is a fridge, right? So the fridge is the box. It removes heat energy from inside that box and it rejects it into the room. For those of you who might be familiar with really old fridges even had a coil in the back. You could physically see that coil and you could feel that heat coming off of it. Newer fridges, that coil is actually built into the sides and the top of the fridge. You can't really see it. However, you can still feel that heat. If you put your hand on the top of the fridge when it's running, you can feel it rejecting heat. And all it's doing really is it's taking heat from the inside of the box and it's spitting it to the outside of the box. So when people ask me, how can a heat pump provide heat even in really, really cold temperatures? Well, think about your fridge and freezer. I mean, your freezer is at like, I don't know what, minus 15 degrees Celsius. It's still able to remove heat from that box and it spits it out into the outside of the box. There are many, many types of heat pump options out there. Today, we are going to focus on air source heat pumps. Of course, there's ground source heat pumps, which are very popular. I would say they're more popular in rural areas, but also in urban centers as well. And then there's heat pump water heaters. Today, however, we're going to focus solely on air source heat pumps. And even within air source heat pumps, there are a number, many, many, many different types of options. This is just coming to mind. I don't know if we've gone through it, but I believe we do have the question and answer portal available here. For those of you, even if you have questions as they come up, please do feel free to post them in that question box. And I do have one of my colleagues, Eric, here, who's able to answer questions as we go. However, we will have a larger amount of time when I'm done my presentation to kind of have an open conversation and answer your questions. So in terms of the options that we have, number one, ductless mini split. These are very common in hotels, some apartments. For those of you who go vacationing or are familiar with kind of different non-Western or sometimes even European countries, these are very popular. There's also ductless mini split, number two, which is a similar technology as number one. However, you have multiple indoor heads. Then number three is ductless mini split. Ducted mini split. So it's also mini split, but it can also be ducted to provide kind of forced air, if you will, to different rooms. Then there's a monoblock, number four, which is kind of a self-contained unit. Number five, window units, which are very similar to, I call them a window shaker air conditioner. Whoopsie doopsie. This should say number six, centrally ducted, which we will talk a lot more about today. Number six, air to water. For those of you who have hydronic or boiler systems, air to water would be the solution for you. And then number seven, as it's written here, is a hybrid system utilizing both an air source heat pump and some sort of backup, most commonly natural gas. So just taking a little pause here, just to reiterate some points. So buildings, including homes, are a major source of carbon because of the fossil fuels that we're using, primarily natural gas used for the space heating and water heating. Broad scale deployment of heat pumps is pretty much inevitable in order to approach the climate targets that are not only set by municipalities and governments, but it's just where we need to get to. Heat pumps consume a much lower carbon fuel, and they're much more efficient. So not only do they consume a much lower carbon fuel, but they're really good at it. And basically, what are heat pumps? They're just air conditioners that can go in reverse. And there are many, many different types of options out there, and there are options that are suitable for your home and for your use case. I want to get into some work that we've been doing for over a year now. Our campaign, this project is called the Smarter Home Heating campaign. You can see kind of call out for it down below here. And through that, we've developed a number of different assets, reached out to a whole bunch of different organizations, contractors, energy advisors, homeowners. And so here I want to showcase some of the case studies that we've provided, that we've developed through that campaign. So these case studies are looking at central cold climate air source heat pumps. So here we have two examples, two case studies that we've produced. So here we evaluated both pre and post retrofit utility bills. These are two Toronto Centuria homes. However, this data is comparable to almost any other house. This is before the Greener Homes Grant and Loan Program. For those of you who don't know what that is, I'll get into that a little bit more, but there are grants and zero interest loans available right now. These case studies both used premium cold climate air source heat pumps. So central systems that were able to completely get the heating system off of gas. In one case, a conversion of a hot water heater to a heat pump was completed as well. The central heat pump cost in both scenarios were around $20K, and there was some service upgrades also necessary. In one case, the electrifying of the hot water was around a $6K additional cost. Just a note that cost will vary with every single home, as well as the different types of equipment, as well as the contractors. Contractors will give you a variety of different prices, so always shop around. Getting into some more details about these central cold climate systems, we can try to estimate the lifetime savings. However, there's a bit of uncertainty with that. Utility rates change all the time. There's uncertainty with carbon pricing. Generally, though, the system is expected to pay for itself, especially with the current rates that we have right now and the current incentive. Additionally, if you look into the loan program as well, and we'll talk about that. There are pretty good results in older homes. However, better results can be achieved in newer homes or even older homes that have had kind of insulation and envelope retrofits. It's important to understand the feedback from these actual homeowners. So I'm not going to read these in their entirety, but basically the comments were that the machines work very well, the heat pump runs, it leaves the home at a really good temperature, thermal comfort was significantly improved. And again, if you want to find out more details and read these case studies in full, you can go to our smarterhomeheating.ca website where all the case studies are there. Here we have some videos that we've produced. There's one here. There's one for the next section too, in terms of hybrid air source heat pumps. I'm going to go ahead and play this now. And please, Devanshi and Desi, let me know if the sound is coming through.
So I'm a retired person and I live in downtown Toronto, adjacent to the University of Toronto campus. I had a 15-year-old furnace and I asked the technician when it would go bust and he said just about now. So I thought, he said, but don't worry, we'll put in a gas furnace for you within 24 hours. And I said, no, you won't. It did feel a couple of years ago like a bit of a jump into a void that which I needn't have been all that anxious about. And the engineers at the city said, don't worry, you're cool. You're cool. Just do it. I said, Okay, I'll do it. And I'm delighted I did. The consensus was the best a possible heat pump to get was a Mitsubishi Suba, which has heated my home in winter, cooled it in summer uh, for 2 years and a bit at exactly the same running cost as gas. So it's been a triumph. It's easy to put in. It's just you need a plan in place how to do it and what kind of a heat pump to put in, and it's not a problem. I mean, if it wasn't a problem for me and I was one of the first in the downtown to put one in, it's not going to be a problem for anybody else. There is a feeling of liberation when you put one in. It's a really great thing not to be contributing to the climate crisis.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'm going to try to see how I can get out of this. There we go. Nope, there we go. Okay, so we talked quite extensively there about central cold climate systems. I want to get into hybrid heating right now. So there may be scenarios where homeowners might be interested in other air source heat pump options, such as maybe the home has a really new furnace. The homeowner doesn't want to, just get rid of that brand new furnace or a year-old furnace. They may want or need lower upfront costs. The ductwork may be undersized, which is something that HVAC contractor and an energy auditor might be able to help you with. Perhaps the electrical is constrained. I know some people in urban areas that may have 100 amp services, or in some cases 60. Or there's a necessity for an emergency system replacement. So the other option may be a hybrid heating system, which can utilize both a heat pump as well as a natural gas furnace. So the air source heat pump would do all of the cooling, replacing the air conditioner, and most of the heating. And you can, in some cases, use your existing furnace. So a little bit more background on hybrid heating. So it can have lower upfront costs than a fully electric cold climate system, like we showed before. The air source heat pump is mainly used in milder temperatures. If you can see the figure here, I mean, in Southern Ontario, most of the heating actually happens in milder temperatures. You can see the green box there is kind of around -8, if you will, and above. And most of the heating energy is happening within that. Extremely cold temperatures is very rare. Temperatures under -20 happens, a fraction, if not less than 1% of the time. And again, it's even possible to use an existing furnace. So here, I want to talk a little bit about some of the case studies that we've produced regarding the hybrid heat pump system that we're talking about. So again, we evaluated pre and post utility bills of 3 retrofits. The installed cost for a new furnace and air source heat pump were around 8 to 10K, but we found in some cases that they could be around $12,000 or $13,000. These systems utilize single and 2-stage heat pumps. They weren't inverter driven, although there are inverter driven options available. I'm not going to get too technical into that, but inverter driven options are a little bit more flexible, they're a bit more efficient, and they have the ability to ramp up from almost 0 to 100% instead of having 2-stage where you have 50% and 100%. They can be as low of an overall cost of $1,000 more than a conventional furnace and AC combo systems. I mean, I know my neighbor recently did a traditional furnace and air conditioner retrofit, and they paid, I think, around $12,000. So it's almost the same, if not they paid more for a traditional system. They have the capability of reducing gas consumption by 50 to about 75%, which is really great considering the cost options available. And in terms of the case studies that we evaluated, the savings were essentially near expectations based on the equipment ratings and the energy models that we had produced. Just getting into a little bit of the savings, we've updated some of our case studies for the current utility rates and also factoring in carbon pricing to 2030. Simple payback without rebates could be several years. Obviously, it's much better with rebates. However, these case studies didn't have rebates available to them. In addition, let me just say that the use cases and the financials are way better against propane or oil. So if anybody here is in a rural area where they have propane or oil, or even in their urban area, I know lots of Toronto or urban homes have oil. It's almost a no-brainer. The numbers make sense, and the payback can be really quick. And again, just describing a little bit of the feedback that we've heard from some of these homeowners. Again, I'm not going to read these out in their entirety, but they were really happy with the contractor's work. They're actually more comfortable now within their home. Some of them did see a resulting overall savings or slight overall savings. And generally, they found the units to be fairly quiet within the home, no noisier than their old or previous system. And here's another video testimonial from a hybrid heat pump owner.
My name is Eve Wyatt. We live in a 100-year-old home in the Danforth area of Toronto. Over time, we've renovated the home and improved the insulation, although it's not to passive house standards or anything special. In the fall of 2020, we got a hybrid heat pump system to replace our furnace and air conditioner. The best thing is the feeling that the heat is on and you know you're not burning any gas or creating any emissions. The first year we saved about 60% of our household's gas consumption from the heat pump. The first year we paid a little more for electricity than we saved from the gas that we weren't using, but as the price of gas has gone up, now we are definitely paying less than we would have if we were still all on gas. At the time, not many people had heat pumps and there wasn't a lot of information around, and I worked with a contractor who'd been taking care of our furnace. Now there's a lot more information out there. There are a lot more installers who are familiar with it, and there are many more options for cold climate systems that don't need a gas furnace. And if we were doing it now, I'd put in a cold climate system. Heat pumps are the way of the future. They're clean, efficient, quiet, and they're affordable.
Okay, great. Some final things to note on the hybrid heating front. Air source heat pump costs can vary greatly. There are both budget options as well as high performance options available out there. There are different controls for you to be able to optimize for the lowest cost possible. So you might have a higher outdoor temperature, switchover temperature, or for the lowest carbon, you could run that heat pump as low as you could possibly get it to. Enbridge is currently running a 100-home rebate pilot program in London. All those systems are installed. There's a 1,000-home rebate. It's actually here right now, not coming soon, as this slide says. That's for London, Peterborough, St. Catharines, and Sault Ste. Marie. If you are in Peel region, there's a 2K incentive right now. And that's for homeowners who are keeping their existing furnace. And there are federal grants that also cover some high performance hybrid systems. And I'll talk a bit more about some grants moving forward here. Right now, actually. So there are some rebate programs available for heat pumps in residential settings. So right now there's the federal Greener Homes grant. And actually, if you're in Ontario, Enbridge is now operating that grant. So you could get up to $6,500 to install a heat pump. I believe the $6,500 is for a cold climate central heat pump, but it varies. There are other options. The City of Toronto provides up to a $2,500 rebate. That's within their HELP program, Home Energy Loan Program. The TRCA, our organization, actually has a hybrid heat pump incentive. This is supported by a group called Climate Action Fund. There's a $2,000 incentive. However, the homeowners must keep their existing furnace. Enbridge has a rebate pilot, as I mentioned in the previous slide. Durham region also is offering performance-based rebates. I know there might also be some members from Ottawa. Ottawa, I believe, also has a home energy retrofit program. And if I've missed any, maybe Desi and Devanshi can let me know at some point in time during this presentation. In addition, there's a really great program that goes alongside the Canada Green Homes grant. So this is the Canada Greener Homes loan. So you could get a loan for energy improvements up to $40,000 at 0% interest. You heard me correctly, 0% interest. I don't need to go into the specifications here of the time value of money, but basically free money now is worth a lot rather than having to invest or use your own capital. It just makes financial sense, if you will. And for those who are participating in the Greener Homes grant or the new Enbridge version, it's easy to apply for this program once you're already in that program. A quick price check, financial check, if you will. I know some of this here may look a bit alarming for those of you not interested in maths, but basically just comparing where we are currently with a normal natural gas furnace versus a high efficiency air source heat pump versus a standard heat pump. So you can see we've basically taken the utility rates, converted those into kind of fuel energy content, so made them all kind of the same between natural gas and electricity, and then the efficiency of the units. Whereas we've described a natural gas furnace around 95%, and then air source heat pumps around 2.8 and 2.5. These are real world numbers, actually, not just manufacturer numbers. And you can see here that they're pretty close, but actually the high efficiency cold climate air source heat pumps are about 20% cheaper to operate year round. So air source heat pumps can be significantly cheaper. The financials are much stronger if you're on oil, propane, or let's say wood. In addition, there's also a proposed ultra-low nighttime rate coming in the province of Ontario. This starts May 1st of 2023. You can actually look this up now. It's part of the legislation from the Ontario Energy Board. And so this is going to mean that for 8 hours of the day, you could consume electricity for 2.5 cents per kilowatt hour. So this is going to make the case for heat pumps and electrification in general much more palatable. So again, just I think I'm good with time, almost over. So just kind of revisiting some of my goals. Air source heat pumps, they do work in our climate. They do perform really, really well in terms of energy cost and greenhouse gas savings. There are many, many heat pumps out there, lots of different options for every home. And, you know, we didn't go into this, but pretty much any manufacturer that makes a furnace, York or Goodman or Mitsubishi or Coleman, I could name off many brands. They have heat pump options. So they are widely available for us today. They have the capability to pay for themselves, as we've seen from some of our case study numbers. And homeowners are mostly satisfied with their heat pumps. I am a cold climate central heat pump owner. I am also mostly satisfied. If you can take away one thing from today, is that it doesn't make sense to install an air conditioner. If you have an air conditioner that breaks down, at least choose a heat pump. And thank you very much to our sponsors, our partners, our homeowners. Thank you very much to Devanshi and Desi today from Clean Air Partnership for helping us put this together. And again, please visit smarterhomeheating.ca to find out some more about our program.
This is great. Oh, sorry, go.
No, I was just going to say, I think we're going to open it up for questions, and I will let Desi and Devanshi lead this portion of the webinar.
Yes, thank you so much. This was so informative and so well presented. I feel like even more, we've been working in this area, so I have a little bit of background, but it was actually very, very well put together. So thank you so much for your presentation. Eric has been answering numerous questions here. Thank you, Eric, for that. I will continue with the ones that we have unanswered, and then maybe I'll give you a word after that, Eric, to like maybe summarize what were the main questions that you already answered. But I believe you can also see them. So here I will start with, how do you get a humidifier functionality with a heat pump?
Humidifier?
I guess that's the question. Yeah, humidifier functionality.
Yeah, it would be exactly the same as a conventional system. So humidification is most commonly done with a box that has water feeding into it, and it's usually on the outside of your return or supply duct in the basement or wherever the air handler or furnace is, and that looks exactly the same in the case of a heat pump. Your heat pump thermostat will have the ability to control the humidifier. So it looks exactly the same. You can even keep your existing humidifier and then ask the contractor to kind of wire it into the new thermostat.
Right, thanks. Next question, it's about contractors. Any good tips, ideas of how you can find an HVAC contractor with a good ASHP knowledge?
So there are databases out there, HRAI. Maybe Eric can put the link in the chat, Eric, if you have time. They do have a database where you could search for contractors that are able to install air source heat pumps, I think the best thing to do is just ask around, ask for as many quotes as possible. And I think you'll be able to tell when speaking with a contractor, even with the limited knowledge that I've provided you with today. I think just asking some simple questions in talking with the HVAC contractor, you'll be able to tell whether they're a good contractor or not. We've been involved with some contractors through our case studies, which again, you could find at smarterhomeheating.ca. But as a public entity, we can't really direct you to specific contractors. I know it can be challenging, but just shop around, ask around, talk to people. I hope that helps.
And I think as the two videos show, that there are like more contractors that are getting this knowledge out there. So I think we are going in the right direction to trust more that there will be experienced contractors there with heat pumps as it goes. For
sure. Yeah. I mean, we've seen that heat pumps work. Our group has seen that heat pumps work for over 15 years in our climate, but I think people are more recently seeing the big picture. And so you will see a lot more contractors offering it as a service.
Right. Moving to next question, which is related with the grid capacity. If you have an electric vehicle and a heat pump that is cooling, heating, how is this affecting the grid? Do you have data to support the power grid keeping up with both?
Yeah, I think this is a question that we get quite often. One thing to note is that this isn't happening all at once. I agree. It's kind of like a comment in a question. I agree that if every other home, even if 50% of all homes were, within the next half a year, connecting to a heat pump, getting off gas and connecting to a heat pump, that might create some issues for the grid. However, I really don't see it happening that quickly. And there are grid utility, IESO, which is Independent Electricity System Operator. There's lots of these organizations who are planning and who do see what is coming in the future. And so I don't really think that it's a problem right now, nor do I really think that it's going to be a problem in the future, because it's not every homeowner that's going to be buying an EV and installing an air source heat pump within the next month. It's going to gradually happen over time.
Right. Great. Thank you so much for answering this question. Moving on one of our question is about living in a townhouse. There is no big outside wall on which to hang the unit, nor basement for house equipment. What are the options for heat pump in this case? Which type? So
your townhouse, depending on the type of townhouse, but like a traditional row townhouse, if you will, you will still have a mechanical system in the basement. You'll still have an air handler in the basement. If it is a ducted system, meaning you have registers on the floor or the wall or the ceiling, you will most likely have an air handler. In some cases, although more rare in our climate, the unit is in the attic, the indoor unit, the air handler. However, there will be something, and it will be likely the same size as an air handler that you will need to install for a heat pump. In terms of the outside, you most likely have an air conditioner. And so, as I mentioned several times throughout the presentation, you can get air source heat pumps that pretty much look exactly the same. They actually have the same form factor and are the same size as an air conditioner. So if you already have that that outdoor piece, that outdoor air conditioner, then you have the exact same amount of space to be able to install a heat pump. It just takes up the same amount of space. You get rid of the air conditioner, you install the heat pump. I hope that helps.
Right. I think there is like a, maybe just a, oh, where is that? Kind of like a similar question with the hanging outside. There is like a concrete walkway between houses cracking to the ice build up. So it's like not a suitable place to put a heat pump.
I mean, you saw in one of the videos, I'm not sure if the cold climate video actually, if that one is mounted to the floor or to the wall, but there are options to mount to a wall, you know, a brick wall or masonry wall, or even not. I suppose they could mount it to the framing underneath the siding. There are lots of options. The contractor is going to find out what's the best option for you. I know that I've heard, and in my particular case as well, because the unit is mounted directly to like my brick wall, the outside of the wall, I do slightly hear the air source heat pump. I believe I hear it a little bit more than if it were to be installed kind of on a pedestal on the ground. That's simply because the vibrations are carrying through to the inside of the building, but it's really not a big deal. So long and short of it, there are lots of options available.
All right. Okay. How does it work with cast iron rod heating that needs water at about 65 degrees Celsius? The person is saying that the ASHP becomes very energy inefficient under these conditions. Is that any comment on that?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. I'm going to try to rewind a whole bunch. So this one, which we didn't touch upon today, number 6, as mentioned here, is an air to water system. So there are air to water heat pumps. We actually may have a case study soon that is highlighting that. We don't have that right now, but there are lots of options out there. Another option could be like a mini split, perhaps as a hybrid system, but there are air to water options out there. I'm not going to go into more detail about that right now, but please, whoever's asking this question, feel free to contact us directly, and we can hopefully lead you to the right place. And Devanshi and Desi can connect us, please.
Yeah, we'll be happy. Email us or Gil, I think he provided his contact as well. We are moving on to next question. A person got recently an AC just last year and a new furnace. So does it mean that they have to get rid of the new AC, or are there options that they can use it somehow with a heat pump?
If you're talking just about the AC, unfortunately, the air conditioner on its own, although it is very similar to a heat pump, it's not going to act like a heat pump unless you replace it with a heat pump. You can keep your existing furnace. We have seen some installations recently around the, I want to say $4,000 to $6,000, or let's say $5,000 to $7,000 mark, where they've kept an existing furnace and replaced only the air conditioner with a heat pump. So unfortunately for you, this webinar wasn't here for you a year ago. But I think that that's the only option for you. The air conditioner on its own can't act as a heat pump without replacing it with a heat pump, unfortunately.
All right. I'm looking at the comments. There is a lot of like, thank you. There is like a few that had the experience with heat pump and say that they're working very well. I also want to give, because we have 5 more minutes, kind of like Eric, if you want to jump and just summarize maybe some of the main questions that you answered before that, because as Gil was presenting, you quite like you answered quite a lot of questions.
Yeah, I think there's 24 still open and 39 that I answered. And yeah, sorry if I didn't get your question, but there's just too many. Feel free to reach out to Gil at this contact information. We can try and answer your question as well. So I've done my best. I mean, some of the common questions are, and sorry if you've already addressed these because I wasn't listening to the presentation at all. I was focusing on the questions. Do they work is a common one. Like, do they work in extreme cold? I live in Ottawa. I live in somewhere else. The answer is one, you can either back it up with gas if you were concerned about that and have a heat pump that did most but not all the load. And the other answer is there are cold climate heat pump options that function down to -25 or -30. So it is feasible even in the vast majority of climates in Ontario to do kind of all electric systems if that's what you wanted to do. Let me see, noise came up a few times. Ultimately, the noise specs for a heat pump can be high or they can be low, just like with an air conditioner. If you're talking about higher performance heat pumps, typically they're quieter. We've got a high performance heat pump at our lab. You kind of have to stand next to it to know that it's on, so it's quite quiet. But we also have a kind of a low cost economy model. And I live in a townhome. I probably wouldn't install that one because it would annoy my neighbors. So the answer is that aren't they noisy on the outside? It depends on the heat pump. There's quiet ones that are a bit more expensive, and there's noisy ones that are lower cost. On the inside, one of the concerns about noise is that if your installer hasn't really looked at the ductwork, it's possible that since air source heat pumps require more airflow, that they could rattle the ductwork a bit more. So there was a question about that as well. How do I know my ducts can handle it? The short answer is that there's some guidelines from Natural Resources Canada. And if you're a very savvy homeowner, you can look at those and take some measurements on your own. But likely that's something to be left to your installer. But just ask that they follow the procedures that are laid out by Natural Resources Canada that are the best practices for sizing and design.
I wonder, can I just quickly interrupt you, Eric? Desi or Debenshi mentioned that there are lots of comments from individuals who already have heat pumps installed. So two things. For those who do have heat pumps installed and are just here because they love them so much, one, we do have a heat pump homeowner survey. And Eric, do you mind, is it still open to participants?
It's still open. It's a question of whether or not we're going to get to looking at the data. But yeah, we'd be interested in hearing what you have to say. We might not be able to summarize it in a report, but it would certainly kind of inform our work generally.
Yeah, just to update, we didn't have the opportunity to include it in today's presentation, but one of the biggest pieces of data, we just reviewed the data today, is I think it was 88%. It was like 14 out of 60 or 16 out of 18 respondents mentioned that they were satisfied with their system. There's like an overall majority of individuals with heat pumps are satisfied with their system. In addition, for those heat pump owners, we are looking for some more potential case studies. That's very dependent on geographically where you're located and also the type of system that you have. But if you're interested in being showcased in some of these case studies, feel free to reach out to us, and then we can decide whether or not your system is warranted for the case studies. So yeah, for those of you who stuck around who do have a heat pump system, thank you.
No, that's great. I'm mindful of the time. There are 2 minutes left to our official end, and I want to thank to Gil and to Eric for your time here with us and for the great resourcefulness that you provided. It's such a good information and being able to answer all these questions for one, and have a lovely evening, everyone.